Welcome to this video tutorial developed to support the Word document entitled Excel 2013 Pivot Table Training. This video demonstrates the section entitled Additional Features. So the first thing we will go to is partial selection of a field. So for example, if you wish to have a look at only 3 consignee country names, then you're able to do that by clicking at the drop-down list and selecting, for example, Afghanistan, Bangladesh. Let's just pick Benin and then OK. And what you can see now is that the pivot table instantly changes to summarize only the data in this selection, Afghanistan, Bangladesh and Benin. What you will notice is that if you now change the location of the consignee country name to the columns row, for example, we will still only be able to see the selection of the 3 countries. So first we have here the quantity for Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Benin, the US dollar value for Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Benin as well. So very useful feature if you want to analyze a partial selection of your data. The show detail function is a function where you can double click any data in your rows or column area, and a window pops up which indicates all the column headings from your raw data, and you can select either of these column headings, for example the document date. Click OK, and the document date for Afghanistan will now be displayed here. So you can remove this new column by just dragging it out of your data here in your pivot table fields. And what I now want to demonstrate is how to display the raw data that makes up your values in your pivot table. And you can do that very easily by double clicking any of your values here. For example, we can double click Bangladesh US dollar value, and instantly we will be directed to a sheet that contains the raw data, meaning all the lines that compiles this specific value. So here we have 9 lines, and we can see that there are actually some PO numbers that are the same, that comes from the same PO. But this is a way to just quickly go and see the actual raw data that makes up your value in the pivot table. So I'll now try and demonstrate how you can sort your data. And the first thing I'll do is to just clear the filter over here from our consignee names. So just clear the filter so that we can get an overview of all our consignee country names. And the way it's filtering right now is that it's taking your consignee country name, filtering that from A to Z, starting with Afghanistan. But we can change that, for example, to show in a descending order based on US dollar value. So that's very useful if we want to see top to bottom of the US dollar value proportions. So that's done by clicking the drop down arrow here, going to more sort options, and then sorting descending by US dollar value, clicking OK. So now we can see that the consignee country name with the highest value is Peru, and then Zimbabwe, Zambia. We can also do that by quantity, for example. I'll just show you how to do that. The same thing, but instead of picking US dollar value, you can just pick quantities, clicking OK, and we will get the sorting by quantity. The value filter is another powerful way of filtering or sorting your data. If we go to value filter, there is a number of predefined suggestions. Let's for example take the top 10. So we can filter the top 10 items by sum of quantity. Let's just accept that, and then we can see these are the top 10. Let's try and change this to US dollar value. And then let's just add the items up to 15. So we now have our top 15 items by US dollar value. This is just to show you how easy it is to make these value filters based on any need that you might have. So you can use the predefined suggestions and then you can edit it to your specific need. Another powerful feature is a calculated field, which allows you to put in a formula to create your own data set. And the way you do that is by going to your Analyze ribbon and then Field, Items and Sets, clicking Calculated Field. What we'll try and do here is to add 15% to the US dollar value. That could be useful if you want to do a scenario calculation. For example, what would happen if 15% was added on top of your US dollar value. And we will just rename this to add 15%, so that would be the title of the calculated field, and the formula would then be taking the US dollar value and then multiplying that by 1.15, and I'll try and click OK. And the 15% column will then be added to the data, and we will just reformat this to show US dollars, and we will remove the decimals like this. So we can see that adding 15% to these 19 million will be more or less 22 million, and here you have the 15% on top of the US dollar value in the original dataset. So the next thing I want to demonstrate is how to update your data if you have made any changes in your raw data. For example, in the setbox2 file that we have here, which is covering 2013, if you had made any changes at any point to this dataset, adding lines or deleting lines, then the pivot table will not instantly reflect that. You will have to refresh the data, and you will do that by going here it is to the refresh all, and that will instantly refresh all your data. What you need to make sure is that if you had added any rows, your source data will need to be changed. And if you go to the Analyze field, you can click the Change Data Source, and firstly you'll see the original data source. It is covering up until line 81,050 G3. So you can see that if, for example, you had inserted a couple of lines after this, then the original data will not be covering it. So then you would have to manually adjust this range to cover all your raw data. If at any point you wish to rename any of your value fields here, you can do that by just going to the name and then writing whatever you think is suitable. So that could be quantities of test kits, and that would then be changed in the pivot table. Just have to remember that there can only be one table or one column with the same name, so you cannot have multiple columns with the same name. Let me show you about subtotal figures. So whenever you have different variables in the row area, you will be presented with subtotals. But these subtotals can sometimes be actually a little more confusing than helpful. So what you can do is to go to any of your subtotals and right-clicking on it and just deselect the subtotals by clicking, and it will just instantly be removed. For formatting your pivot table easily, you can go to the Design tab and just clicking any of the predefined formats. You're also able to format it yourself just using regular formatting in Excel. Moving any of the names in the row section can be done by right-clicking, for example Belarus, and then go to Move, and then you can move Belarus to beginning, like this. To produce similar reports based on, for example, the consignee region name, this can be done very easily by firstly moving the consignee region name to the filter section, or consignee country name. Let me just take that back and take the consignee region name to the filter, like this, and then you go to the Analyze tab, and in the options field out here you can show report filter pages, and you can then paste it on consignee region name. By clicking OK, you will now get a report for all the consignee regions. So that is a very easy way of building multiple reports in an instant. If, for example, you wish to share any of these reports or any pivot tables, then you need to make sure that if you share it like this as an active pivot table, then it will need to come with the original source data, which for this instance would be the ZBox2 report. So many times you don't want to share the raw data, so what you need to do is to copy the data fields in your pivot table and then paste it in a new sheet. And this will just give you the numbers and not the underlying data sets. But what you need to be careful with is not to copy the whole pivot table, because if you do that, what will happen is that it will actually copy the whole data set that goes with it. So be careful that if you want to share only the specific pivot data points and not the underlying data sets, be careful not to copy the whole pivot table when sharing. So that is it for this section of the tutorial. Thank you.